This is the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zella. And we are back with another episode of the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast with my good buddy, John Zella. What's up, pal?
Not a whole lot. Enjoyed the Rangers-Islander game and the victory the Islanders had there. Offensive explosion. We'll get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we do that, let's get to On the Island, brought to you by DraftKings. This weekend's UFC 261 is sure to be a can't-miss event. Every punch, kick, and knockout means so much more with the DraftKings lineup on the line. DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the UFC, is giving you a shot at huge cash prizes. For this weekend's fight, DraftKings is offering all players a shot at millions of dollars in total cash prizes. There's no better way to put your MMA knowledge to the test than to compete for a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the DraftKings app now and use promo code THPN to get a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes throughout the week. That's promo code THPN to get a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for more details. Let's talk about the previous week that was. And I got to tell you, look, going through this process of, my wedding is Friday, so I haven't been able to be super focused on the games, but from what I've seen and what I've gathered, the offense isn't doing too hot. And they slipped two to Boston, right? 2 in a row. We went 5-0 against them. Now we're 5-2, which is still good, but we dropped 2. Then we go into Philly, win a 1-0 game. And then tonight we'll talk about the offensive explosion. Hopefully that's the floodgates that we're looking for. But I don't know, man. Those 2 games against Boston looked pretty bad. Is there concern there for you? What are you thinking?
I think that the 2 Boston games and Philly are a concern for me. Not at this time of the year. Now, the saving grace to this is this is right after the trade deadline. This is 2 new guys in the lineup. This is with some injuries popping up with Bailey, who returned tonight, and Clutterbuck, who is still out. And thinking back to last season when Pajot's 7 games, he scored in his first 2 games. He fought Trouba, looked like it was good, and then it was a lot of goose eggs. Or as my old boss would say, big old swig of block letter worth of activity the rest of the way there. And it would take until the postseason for Pajot and the Islanders to really turn it around. Mm-hmm. So considering there's the Palmieri, there's Zajac getting into the lineup, and plus these injuries, I'm concerned but hopeful because of what happened last year, that it's just going to take some time. They actually have a little more time this season, considering are they at the 7-game mark? I don't know how many games they play with the Islanders. It's got to be 7 at this point, because they played 3 of the previous week when we did the show, and now it's 4, including tonight. So they're at 7 now. Palmieri looked great tonight. Yes. He looked like a very different player tonight, and that's good, right? That's at the 7-game mark. Yeah. Maybe things get turned around. I don't really know what to do.
I think he drew 3 penalties tonight against the Rangers.
Yeah, his feet were moving. He was going to the net hard. He was using his body to protect the puck, and you're going to keep his feet moving. He's going to draw penalties like that. So sure. I really, really didn't like the Islanders in those 3 games. Even the win against Philly, they did not look good. So I think as long as they can turn it around, these next 3 games, and I want to jump. We're going to want to jump in all ahead. It's these next 3 games as a set is how I want to. That's a determining factor of how they're going to be going into the playoffs.
Yeah, very important 3 games coming up. We'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, we drop 4-1. Boston, takes that first game of the previous week. Then they lose 3-0, and then they go into Philly and they win 1-0. And
they didn't look good there either.
The glaring problem, and Philly's not that great either. They're trying to figure their stuff out too. But the glaring problem here is the scoring woes, right? And we've seen this before. We've seen it under Trotz. We've seen, before the end of the world last season, they stumbled into what was the NHL pause. So, we've seen them go on this kind of I don't know, lack of scoring drought before, but it was a little different last year. We had some injuries. Pelech was out. Cizikas was out, and not that they're scorers, but it changes the dynamic of the team. Other players have other responsibilities, and now things start to get a little bit out of whack. Yes, there are some injuries currently. Bailey gets back into the lineup tonight. He missed the previous few games.
He looked like a different player.
He looked very good tonight. But no, I don't think that the injuries last year versus the injuries that we had right now are the same as far as impact on the lineup. So I fully expect that scoring drought that they went through to almost be over. I think it had a little bit to do with the post-trade deadline chemistry. They had a little bit of an injury bug that they were trying to figure out, but I think now they're getting over that hump. And I was going to say that regardless of the score tonight, because we did see that offensive outburst tonight. 6-1 against the Rangers. They looked very good. But previous to tonight's game, they only scored 2 goals in 9 periods. So that's an issue right there.
I mean, I think it was more than just the scoring. That was part of them just not being on their game. They were letting, as we discussed the last few weeks, really.
Right.
The Islanders are letting other teams dictate the play, and they're not making good passes. I all season I've been very impressed with their neutral zone play, especially regrouping.
Sure.
When they're fumbling the puck and they're not able to get pucks deep and they're not forechecking well, it's not just the scoring is just like the result of the whole thing. But they couldn't get their game together. They just weren't the Islanders that we had seen for their good stretch of the season. And I think a big problem is they're on or they're off. That's what's really worrying me, is that they can easily get on a little stretch like that of 9 periods of just not looking good. And it's not like it's a bad second period, it's a bad this, they're not playing well. It winds up stretching over a longer period of time, and they manage to catch some positive consistency and then negative consistency on a fairly regular basis. That's the only consistency they have, is that year over year they seem to have on and off periods.
Prior to tonight's game, I don't feel like we saw that Islander team all season except for last week. I think last week was the lowest that they've gotten.
I can agree with that
as far as their play this season. But again, I attribute that to, and I'm not pushing the panic button yet. A lot of people are, criticizing the power play, which is, justified. But the scoring and everything as well. 5-on-5 was obviously not there either. And Trotz is still trying to figure out where to put Zajac. Is there a spot for him in this lineup? When everybody's healthy, is he maybe the guy who sits? Does Komarov kind of maybe deserve to stay in an everyday role at this point? Yeah, that all might be true. Where does Palmieri fit in right now? He played real well with the second line tonight, and we saw a new third line of Beauvillier, Peugeot, and Bailey, which I want to talk about a little later too. That was great. So it's interesting because you get Palmieri, you get Zajac, and you automatically think Palmieri is going to be the first line solution. He hasn't seen first line minutes yet, which is crazy.
Very rarely.
Right. And the thing is, they're trying to figure out their top line still. You have Zajac up there, who actually had a pretty good game there tonight. But previously, Komarov was there, and he had actually been, holding his own as well. So they're still trying to figure out the line combinations. I think they got a little bit closer tonight. Like we said a couple of times now, 6 goals against the Rangers. Now, it was encouraging, but the Rangers are known for their defensive woes. They can score a ton, but they can also give up a ton. Shesterkin and Georgiev are great, but they have holes. Their defense has holes. Fox is, in my opinion, right now he could be a Norris candidate for sure. But keeping the puck out of their net, they're having a hard time with that too. So the top 6 really needs to step up. It's been a while for Barzal. Eberle Potts won tonight, which was nice, but Trotz might have really found something with that Beauvillier, Peugeot, and Bailey line. 7 points tonight against the Rangers combined. 2 goals for Bailey, a goal and an assist for the other 2. Bailey also tallied an assist as well. So I like that line a lot if it can stay consistent.
I like that middle 6. I don't know where you. I wonder. Dal Cole. If when Clutterbuck comes back, does that mean Dal Cole comes out? I don't know how to rearrange the lineup. I will say this about Komarov. And I agree with all of your points. I love that third line. I think it worked great. And that seems to be what can make or break this team.
Yeah.
That secondary scoring outside of Barzal, if he's not going to be going and Eberle's not going to be going, they did tally one tonight. It's really important that that line, just in a matchup basis, like they need to take advantage of it. But I will say this, and this might have implications for after this season too, and it might not be what people want to hear. When Clutterbuck's not in, I love Komarov on that fourth line. It works. Having him in the lineup, I think, is important. I don't think he should be on the first line, but I think having Komarov in the lineup to mix it up a little bit, he's a little bit of the agitator, and that's not really a position that the Islanders have filled before. That's not something that I realized that tonight. I'm like, even the last few games, he's just there mixing it up. He's kind of jabbing guys a little bit. And, Clutterbuck on that line play a heavy game, and that definitely gets under other teams' skin. But, in the playoffs, these little chippy thing, like, you kind of want that pain in the ass on your side. Yeah. And if Clutterbuck's not going to be in, I think even Butch mentioned on the show, on the broadcast, Clutterbuck's got a better shot. But overall, I think Komarov's game is a little bit better. And it does fit the fourth line. And to me, either one of them, I think, work really well.
Yeah, I think they both have a spot on that fourth line for sure. And Leo knows his role. He's going to play. If he's put on the first line like he is, under Trotz, he's going to make it work. And he did. He's got a different mentality right now where he's playing up to the expectation that he's supposed to be playing up to. And it's great to see. Is it going to last? I couldn't tell you because nobody expected this to even happen. But it's not like he's scoring goals, but he's doing literally everything else right. Including, I think he had a real nice assist a week and a half ago on an Eberle goal. He's doing everything else right, so right that we're kind of shockingly saying to ourselves and to each other, Komarov should be in tonight.
And if when you're getting set up for success, it's amazing what'll happen.
Right.
It happens with defensemen all the time. Gossespear is a really good example of that. For years, he's being coached really well and being put in the positions to succeed, and then all of a sudden he's not. And they're like, well, this guy sucks. And you're like, well, no, he shouldn't be. You're putting him in situations. Of course, he's going to suck. He's not that kind of player. So to see Komarov in the right spot on this team, granted, like salary cap stuff kind of goes away to a certain degree and all that kind of stuff. We worry about that at a different time. It seems okay. He's in the lineup. I thought Dal Cole looked at the last couple of games, has gotten way more chances and is getting really close. Like he's bound to kind of break through. Like he's almost got it. The percentages you can't work against him forever. And on that second line, I think that's Palmieri, Nelson, and Dal Cole. I think that works. I think the issue becomes at some point, is it as like a Zajac Komarov getting switched around? Clutterbuck comes back. He really belongs on that fourth line over Zajac. I'm not really sure how that shakes out. Like if you think that second line played well, if you think the third line played well, you should. They had 7 points tonight.
Yeah.
And if the fourth line is the MC squared line, that really doesn't leave a ton of options. Like, is that Komarov on the first line? Zajac's getting, put in the press box for the night. He's a healthy scratch. He's not playing particularly well with that first line. There's, outside of getting them control the puck off the faceoff, which is obviously important, something Trotz wants to do. I think that's where some confusion sets in, and that's where you might see continued first and second line changes. I think that third line sticks.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? We're talking about who sticks in the lineup. And really the mantra of this team has been next man up, right? They acquire Zajac, which was a depth move in reality, right? He's just going to have to play in that next man up role. That's the thing. He's the next man up if Komarov comes out of the lineup. Here's something even more interesting that we're not talking about. Oliver Wahlstrom didn't play tonight. Where does
You know what?
fit in now?
Now I'm kind of forgetting about that, and that might be the case, right? Maybe eventually he's got to get a scoring touch back too, right?
Right.
Does he fit on that second line instead of Dal Cole with Palmieri and Nelson? I think maybe that was already tried. That doesn't sound familiar.
Maybe.
Because Bevillier's been there. So that doesn't sound super familiar to me.
But like you said, maybe he needs to also be set up for success. Maybe because that third line was doing so well, give him a crack at that first line left wing shot. Why not? Why not throw him on that first line left wing? I think it's the minutes. That's probably what it is with Trotz. He doesn't want to give him the minutes.
Well, that's the success part, right? He was having success, and like I said about the third line a minute or two ago, that line is getting got good matchups tonight.
Yeah,
and that helps. So putting Wahlstrom against the other team's forechecking heavier line and a top D pair, you might not see Wahlstrom have success right away, and you might have his weakness is exploited by the other team, and you really don't want that. Now, at the same time, I don't know what you have to lose. I mean, Zajac, the veterans are going to be better defensively, understand the systems a little bit quicker, yada yada. And if that's ultimately what it's about, yeah, I guess Zajac is your
and
is your person on that line, and I guess you leave it alone. But I remember when I first turned the game on, because I missed a little bit of the first period, and I was like, oh yeah, Wahlstrom's not in. And I saw the text chain with you and Joe, and I was like, oh yeah, he's on the lineup. And I remembered when you just said it.
Yeah, and
it's a really good point. I almost want to say it's that second line. I think with Palmieri, Nelson, Wahlstrom, I don't hate that.
No.
And then Dal Cole, I don't know, he's in the press box. I feel bad for the guy.
But listen, this is a good problem to have, because the depth that we have, the conversation we're having right now is a conversation that we did not have at this point last season, when the Islanders needed that depth and they didn't have it. Now, albeit
it was different flexibility, but it was a lot more precarious. It was a lot of like, oh, Komarov, Pajot, and Guy, or whoever, and then Brassard on the second line, and it kind of it wasn't rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The lineup went to the Eastern Conference Final, but it even on paper, you're like, yeah, I don't know how to make this like. Hopefully it works. Like, and Trotz figured it out, to his credit. But on paper, sometimes you're like, I hope this works. Like,
well, and that's the thing, right? I think I've said to you a couple of times, even on paper, this season, when you look at the lineup, it just looks much more full. And I know it's just words on a page, but it works, right? It just looks leaps and bounds better than it did at one point earlier in the year.
100%.
And then earlier last year, right before they got Pajot, it was like, oh my God, like there's such a hole in this team. And now,
because Brassard didn't fill it, and that was a huge problem. It turned out to, he scored some important goals going in, in the playoffs. So he worked out. It just was a winger. It
just wasn't a consistency that the team had and that they needed. And now you look at the lineup and you're like, okay, we have so much depth, and the lineup is so complete that we're sitting guys we don't even want to sit right now. Like, I don't want to sit Oliver Wahlstrom now, albeit Trotz is right? The kids need to learn the mental grind of this, and maybe he was off his game a little bit. Maybe it was okay for him to take a seat.
Look at Bailey. I mean, granted, he may have been hurt. He came back. He looked reinvigorated.
Yeah, exactly. So, every once in a while it's good. And Dobson returned tonight, and he looked real good tonight too. So
he really needed that. He needed it, fighting it.
And that's why we got Coburn. And that's why I don't mind.
And he looked good.
He looked pretty good.
I mean, again, limited minutes, he's protected, blah, blah, blah. Like, mixed
and
it up a little bit again, a little bit of that Komarov, a little bit of, and that's kind of playoff little chippiness. Like you want to be able to, if you are going to wind up playing a Boston in the first round or in the second round, you're going to need that.
Right, and a couple more games under his belt in the regular season, he'll be, he'll still get some sheltered minutes, but maybe not as much, and he'll be a little more acclimated, and he'll look even better than he did in the first game in his first appearance, with the Islanders. So
Yeah, and I don't want to jump too far ahead because I know we can get down this rabbit hole pretty easily. But talking about looking at the lineup and thinking like it looks really full, I had a different perspective on it, and it's not as negative as you might think this is going. But it was like, man, instead of Zajac on that first line, if Lee was in the lineup,
yeah,
and Palmieri's there, that third line clicks, even with Dal Cole in the second line, Wallstrom, whatever. Oh, what a difference! And that's not that's nothing on Zajac, but
no,
and then because that was our conversation, that was in our thread earlier. Like, man, I really hope they can get Palmieri signed in the offseason. Like, a lot of things had to go right, to your point, but I looked at the lineup and I was like, man, that would be something. That would be sweet. Like,
oh yeah.
Then you look at the lineup and you see some depth, and if everything kind of lined, the planets align for Lou this summer. Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's for the first time in a long time. I think we're excited going into the season, and rightfully so.
Right.
Trying to put into perspective the last 3 seasons. We'll see where the playoffs go and the success that they have. But yeah, that'd be something for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Islanders score 6 tonight, which was encouraging. Hopefully that puts their scoring woes behind them. They got a power play goal or two tonight as well, which was encouraging to see. I know Beauvillier definitely got one. But let's move on to the Islanders goaltending, and specifically Ilya Sorokin's spectacular season. Let's listen to these numbers real quick. He's 12-4-1 with a .922 save percentage, a 2.02 goals against average, and he's 8-0-0 at the Coliseum. The question remains, should he be in the Calder conversation? Now, I know we spoke about this, I want to say a dozen episodes ago. It's different now. We were questioning, is he going to get enough games in? Maybe it wasn't a dozen, might have been like 6 or 7. But is he going to get enough games in? This, that, and the other thing. He's played 17 games now. He's going to get 20 starts. Is that not enough for him to be considered to be in the Calder conversation? I think it should be in a truncated season. Now, not only that, he's by far the best rookie goaltender to be playing right now. I know, that guy Lankinen with Chicago is playing pretty well with them, but they fell off a little bit. And he doesn't have numbers like Sorokin has. But, right. I think we have an idea that Kaprizov is the favorite, but should he not at least be there as one of the 3 finalists?
It's at this point, yes. I mean, I don't see why not. And he may be on some people's ballots. I don't know that he gets on the final, like, what we see.
Right.
But I think he definitely gets votes.
He should.
I don't know. Kaprizov is kind of something else. Just a quick note. Looking through the Calder Memorial Trophy winners, looks like Steve Mason is the last goaltender to win, and that was 2009
with the Thrashers. Am I right?
Blue Jackets.
Oh, right. Okay. He was with the Thrashers at one point, yeah.
I honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know. And then before that, Andrew Raycroft with the Boston Bruins.
Wow.
So it's not something that happens
often.
That, that, not to say that they're not nominated, but it's very clearly very rare that they win. Now, granted, there are 30 whatever spots, 60 goaltenders in the league, and it's not until recently that even 2 goalies on your team get fairly consistent play, or games played. So it doesn't surprise me. Young guy is not going to get the minutes to be considered.
Yeah.
Now that there's kind of this platoon style goaltending in the NHL, that's really worked for the teams that have leaned into it quite a bit, led by the Islanders and the Dallas Stars, although the Dallas Stars for some reason seem to get more credit than the Islanders. I don't know how that happened. Even the Islanders have been doing it for a really long. They've had, going back to Grice and Halak, they've had two really good goalies, two starting goalies for all intents and purposes for years.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't seem super likely. There's precedent. It has happened before, but even then, Roycroft, then it was Nabokov in 2001 and Brodeur in 94. So that is not very many.
Right.
In the last 30 years. But like I said, it's possible. What do you think?
So, I think about it in terms of, the overall best rookie performances. Now, this kid on Dallas, I think his last name is Robertson, is lighting the lamp right now like crazy. Kaprizov continues to do his thing, but the numbers that Sorokin is putting up can't be overlooked. Now, he's got a better save percentage than Semyon Varlamov, which is good to see, but he's in the top 10 in goals against. He's in the top 10 or top 20 goaltenders in save percentage. And if you look at that top 10 in goals against and top 20 in save percentage, you don't see any other rookies there. And it's not just the numbers either. It's he steals games. He's got 3 shutouts now. It's not just that he's a playing behind a good defense. He's the reason that they won a couple nights ago in Philly. They easily could have won that game 3-0 if the Islanders didn't score late in that game.
I think he's definitely in that conversation. The numbers help. If he gets the 20 starts, that definitely helps.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think he's for sure on ballots.
I think let's just remove Kaprizov from the conversation for a minute. If he's not in the league right now, I think it's Sorokin's for the taking, and that's my unbiased opinion. I don't know. I don't know not to be biased here.
I don't know enough about the other rookies to be able to say, and so I'll leave it at he's in the conversation. I think it depends on the voting, and do people take into consideration that it's on the Islanders and it's a little bit of a protected thing, the same way that the same argument is always made about Martin Brodeur and blah blah blah. Plenty of people will tell you it's not. I don't know that I believe that he's a product of good defense.
Right.
And Sorokin, exactly to your point, the Islanders don't always look good. They are a defensive team and they do let up some chances. They're not always high danger, but just like we've been saying about the schedule, you can only play the cards you're dealt. And Sorokin's, he's winning games. And he's been really consistent. And his numbers, much like Varlamov's, have reflected the team's ability to play well. When they're not playing well, they lose 4-1 and 3-0.
Right.
It's the whole team. No one looks good. But then in Philly, they steal one. Sorokin specifically stole the game. Because the Islanders really didn't have any business winning it. It was another tough one to watch. It was. Right. I've said this a million times. I don't mind this team losing if they look good doing it. And up until tonight, they just looked a step behind.
Yeah.
They didn't look like they just weren't playing their game for whatever reason. It's amazing, and we said this last year with Pellick out and a couple of things. Like it worried me that it doesn't take much for the chemistry. It's like Chris Traeger in Parks and Rec is like a piece of sand in a machine. It just ruins the system. He gets the flu and he just loses it.
Yeah.
That's what worries me about this team. It doesn't take much for the wheels to wobble a little bit. And when it's on, it's working. And they're really, even when they lose, they look like they're playing well and they're fighting. They come back in games. Was it against Philly or Boston or whatever, where I think it was against Philly. They lost 4-3, but they were down 3-1. They fought back and they lost 4-3. I want to see that fight in the third period. I want to see them play their game where they can lock it down or come back. In the beginning of the season, that's all we were saying, right? Wow, this team is their ability to come back in games, and even if they're down early, that they're staying on track, and they were going to score 3 goals this game, whether or not the opposing team scored in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah,
the Islanders were going to find a way to score 3 goals. It didn't matter. And we've not seen that. We've seen them just get behind and that's it. And that's, in the playoffs, they need to kind of pick up that level. I have every reason to believe they can do that because they did that in the playoffs last year. And exactly in my point earlier, after the Peugeot trade, I think Palmieri picks it up, but anyway, back to Sorokin. I think he's in that conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And he should be. But let's talk more internally for a second. This is a great question to be asking too, because in my opinion, the Islanders have the most competent goaltending in not only the East Division, but probably the league. Is that unfair to say right now?
Not, honestly, I've not paid that much attention to like a Dallas, but just because I know they do. I don't know if
so
they're
hurt
or something.
They're a little injury ridden, between Khudobin. I don't know. Bishop hasn't played this season yet. Same goes for in Colorado. Grubauer's been hurt. Francois has been hurt. They got Dubnyk. And over in Vegas, Lehner's been hurt a bunch. Only recently has he been back playing with Fleury. So I could say right now that the best goaltending tandem in the league, you'd have to say it's Varlamov and Sorokin.
It's hard to argue against it.
Is it still Varlamov's net?
100%.
100%. I'm so glad you said that.
100%. And not, you can come up with any kind of stat or reason.
I had to ask the question because we had to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely worth bringing up. But like I was saying, I think you can bring up whatever reason you think it could be Sorokin's net.
Mm-hmm.
And the response is Barry Trotz, veterans. End of discussion.
Exactly.
End of discussion.
But not only that, Varlamov is playing so well this season. He's in the Vezina conversation. There's been a bunch of talk that he could be one of the finalists. And when people talk about the best goaltenders this season, he's up there. So it's not just like, oh, he's the veteran. It's his net. He's playing awesome.
And that would be it. If he was if this was like Florida.
Right.
And Bobrovsky wasn't playing well and Dredger comes in and plays. Yeah, it's his net.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
the numbers prove it. I think Bobrovsky still played a few more games, but Dredger, I think is going to get some starts.
Right.
His quality starts, I think, are a little better. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's absolutely, it's the better goalies net to lose plus veteran status on an Islander team with Barry Trotz as a coach. Yeah, it's Varlamov's net. I don't have a question.
Tonight I tweeted out before the game started, got a notification. Semyon Varlamov is in net, tweeted it out. Got a bunch of tweets at me. Why is Sorokin not starting this game? How could you not start Sorokin? I'm like, let's pump the brakes, everybody. Semyon Varlamov in 3 games this season, and this was before the win tonight, is 2-1 with 2 shutouts, 102 goals against average, and a 966 save percentage. Do we really not want to play him tonight? Because the numbers are there. And Sorokin's numbers against the Rangers, not that great. He's in the high 800s in goals against and high 3s for high 800s for save percentage and high 3s for goals against. So it's again, it could have been a team thing on the nights where he was in net against the Rangers. But bottom line is when Varlamov's in net, the chances of the Islanders winning against the Rangers greatly increase, as we saw tonight. In
absolutely
6-1 victory.
I mean, thinking about the tandem, just going back to your point, and sorry if I looked a little distracted. I wanted to look up the goals against across the league to see where the Islanders were. They're 3rd,
right,
with 106. So they're in the Jennings conversation again.
Oh yeah, of course.
And even if they don't win it, just to kind of consistently be there, I think that's really important. I mean, you look at Vegas too. I think obviously Leonard and Fleury are a great tandem. They both been playing really well this year. Hard to discount that.
Mhm.
So that they probably give the Islanders tandem a run for their money. They've I think had to, yeah. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury's that I think that's the difference here is for the Islanders, the games are much more split. Whereas for Vegas, it's 30-14.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard's only played 14 games, but he
Right.
still has really good numbers, and then Fleury has ridiculous numbers. So I think the Islanders definitely in that conversation. Well, okay, Sorokin's got 17 games played to Varlamov's 29 too, so that kind of makes sense. But in the games that Sorokin's playing, like you gave the numbers, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be something if only three seasons apart, two different pairs of Islander goaltenders win the Jennings Trophy at the season's end, right? First time around, you had Lehner and Greiss win the Jennings, and at the end of this season, it's very possible that Varlamov and Sorokin take it, and it's just 3 seasons apart. You'd think, oh, at least one of them would be the same goaltender, but just goes to show the development in the Islander system with goaltending.
Yeah, and it's not going to take much for the Islanders to take that over if they can kind of continue, playing really good defense and getting on their game.
Yeah.
And Vegas has one stinker of a game. They have 100 goals against so far. The Islanders at 106. Islanders can get in that spot. Other teams around them. It doesn't take that much, so there might be a little bit of movement, but they're in the running. It's definitely the case. So, I'd say Vegas and the Islanders best 2 goalies, best 2 tandems in the NHL because they're very similar in how they deploy them. So I apologize in being wrong earlier. I feel like Sorokin had more games played than I thought. But.
Yeah, he's at 17. He's on the cusp of hitting that 20 mark, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. So, and one of those games might come and probably should come next week when the Islanders play the Washington Capitals 3 times. This is, I feel like we say this all the time, but this is probably the most important week thus far ahead of us.
I think there are different reasons for them being important, though. In the past, it was, by the middle of the month, we're going to know if they're going to make the playoffs. And they kind of reach that bar. Now it's going to be this is going to be playoff hockey. Now it's a fight for first place. And
absolutely.
3 times in a row. This is, can you take it to the next level with 10 games left? Can you raise your game?
Right. Can
your guys get comfortable? Can you flip the script at a team that owned you in the early part of the season? Right. That's why this is important. It's just a little bit different than those other conversations that we were having. The first one was reach that first level. This is tier 1 hard. Right. Now we're getting to tier 2. Now and then tier 3 is just closing out the season, and tier 4 is going to be that playoffs.
Right. But now the Capitals have been a little bit on, a little bit off. They dropped the game to Buffalo. They lost 5-2. They dropped the game to Boston. Boston's a little rejuvenated. They got a little more juice in that lineup with Hall and Lazar now. But Washington is going to be obviously a problem. Currently in first place. And let's talk about Anthony Mantha, who they acquired at the deadline. He scored in 4 straight games since being on the Washington Capitals.
Wow, it's amazing what happens when you're on a good team.
That's what I'm saying. And tons of people were saying this is a one-sided deal. Detroit won, yada, yada, yada. Pump the brakes, guys. This kid, Mantha, they got Ovechkin and they got Mantha now. That's 2 elite goal scorers. Now, albeit Ovechkin's the top tier elite goal scorer. Mantha's probably a middle-of-the-pack elite guy, but he's there, right?
It's a threat. In addition to Oshie and Backstrom and
right. So with
whatever you want to say about Wilson.
Listen, Wilson's a gamer. All right, he knows how to do all of it. He knows how to put the puck in the net. He knows how to dish. He knows how to hit. Well, I don't know if he knows how to hit.
I don't think he knows how to hit.
That's another conversation. But bottom line is he's a difference maker on that team. Now, insert Anthony Mantha. So is he. And I told you I wouldn't put it past him. I think he had 9 goals with Detroit. I wouldn't put it past him to finish this season with 20 goals. He's that good of a goal scorer. He's going to be a problem for the East Division for the rest of this season, and they got him for 3 more years after this. So,
and you got to think it's a little bit of deployment. It's a different. You're not going to be playing against the team's best. You know, in Detroit, when you're the best player, you're going to go against them. But you have Ovechkin, you have an Oshie, you have all these other players that they're going to try to line match against. And it's about the team mentality. You know, if he's playing with a team that's a shoot first mentality, you're going to find success.
Yeah, he was playing on the top line with Dylan Larkin, and he's a fantastic player. But now Mantha's playing on the second line with Nicholas Backstrom, who, in my opinion, is a better player than Dylan Larkin. And he, like you said, is not playing against the opposing team's top defensive unit. So he's a problem. It's been a really good start for him there. Now, how do the Islanders, come out of this week alive? They got to, at least take 3 points, in my opinion.
I mean, that just keeps it in the exact same spot.
And that would be a win, in my opinion. It has to be at least that. At least.
I wouldn't be mad about that, obviously, but I wouldn't be happy about it. I don't know. I don't think that's what you're saying. I don't think you're.
Wait, when you think of it this way, if they only took 3 points, so did Washington.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I think that's a victory, but you're not happy about it. Just like the game against Philly, you won that game, but you're not happy about that.
Like like you always say, it depends how these games go too. If they take 3 of a possible 6 points, but they were in each of those games, I'm happy. I'm confident.
I want to see
the playoffs.
I want to see regulation wins. I want to see controlling the tempo and playing full 60 minutes like they did tonight. I really want to. I would be happy with 4 of 6. I want to see them get control of first with 7 games left and have Washington chase them, and then the Islanders put the pedal to the floor. That's what I want to. I think that would be really important.
Yeah, of course. So we'll see how it shakes out. It's going to be definitely a tough week, but an important week for the Islanders. And hopefully they could ride the wave of the Ranger game tonight or yesterday, as you're listening to this, into next week, and keep that goal scoring touch. Now, I don't know if the Capitals will continue to score the way they have been against the Islanders. They're a little bit of a better or much better defensive team than Boston. This year that their defense is not there, and and Buffalo, who they played last week. So we'll see. It's a big test this week, and let's hope for 3 to 4 points at least. But we threw it out there on Twitter. We said to you guys who might be listening right now, and our Twitter followers, hit us with your questions, your comments, your concerns, and we will definitely address them on the podcast. So we need a name for this mailbag, huh? Let's Nassaumen's answers. Did I just make that up right now? I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll put it on the drawing board. But let's talk about Tristan Peck tweets at us. We're playing like we did running up to the COVID stoppage last season. The results aren't too bad right now, but if we do start to rack up the losses, what can Barry do? Regardless of an all right-handed top line, surely it's time to put Palmieri up there. It's a good question, and I totally understand your point. And this question did come pre-Rangers game.
Some of them did, and you'll be able to tell which ones.
Yeah. He looked real good tonight on the second line with Nelson and MDC. It's interesting because I don't know what the solution is to the top line right now. And as you said, it would be an all right-handed top line.
So that's been the third line. Like it was Pajot, Wallstrom, Palmieri, or
I don't know
whatever.
if that's something that Trotz is even thinking about right now. That could be something they do if the chemistry doesn't, continue to roll out the way it did after the Ranger game. And who knows? Like I said, maybe we do end up seeing Palmieri on that top line because Wallstrom's got to get back in this lineup eventually as well. So I'm not too worried about the play up until this point. It like you said, Tristan, it is similar to up until the COVID stoppage last year, but I think it's just a little bit different because some of the key players that were not in the lineup last season, are in the lineup this season, and I think they can definitely turn that around. I don't know, John. What do you think?
I want to see it, but I get kind of why it's not happening.
Yeah.
Again, the theme of the episode is deployment. I really just don't think they want to put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
I really think it's trying to make obviously when Barzal's on the ice, it's dangerous, right? Between him and Eberle, things can happen. They just need to kind of light the fire a little bit.
Yeah.
Finding, having Lee really work with them was, I wonder if that was a happy accident. I don't think anyone would draw that up. I mean, unless you're a future Hall of Fame Stanley Cup winning coach. I don't know that you kind of like do that and say like, yeah, this is the makeup what we want of our top line, because the other lines don't necessarily look like that. The middle six, especially this season as it's currently constructed, is really good. I think the theme of every line though is, and why Palmieri might not work on that top line or not be in the plans to be constructed that way, is it's especially the first three lines. If you really think about it, you have two guys that can score and a defensive guy. Zajac, Dalcol, Bailey. Now, granted, Bailey scored a goal tonight. That happens sometimes. You get playmakers on their line. You're going to dish and you're going to score. That's just the way that the game works. But if you really think about it, that's kind of how the lines are constructed. Even to some degree, like, that fourth line, maybe Martin is that guy where he's pretty sound defensively, stays above the puck. And that kind of, the whole line in that case is really defensive and they know exactly what their role is. But Palmieri, outside of special situations, latent periods, blah, 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 I don't know that I want to see it. I absolutely want to see it more often.
Yeah.
But I don't see it. I don't think that's how Trotz constructs his lines.
Yeah. We'll see if that happens, Tristan. I feel like at some point it might, but if this middle six currently continues to play the way they did, you might see that stay the way it is right now. And who knows, what's going to happen with that top line. Bellows did get a shot on that top line in Lee's absence early on. So who knows if Wahlstrom maybe slots in there,
He's a possibility if they trust him enough defensively. Huge if. Carrying all the weight in that sentence.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Like, they have to trust him, and I don't know that they do.
Right.
And that's the question. They can kind of rely on Zajac to understand his role.
Correct. And
win the faceoff. That's tough.
Yeah.
Barzal was not the best, he wasn't the best Islander in the dot this season.
Correct.
So to have somebody kind of replace that and make down the middle, you're going to win the faceoff one way or another. You have 5 centermen out there that, you can win a faceoff, or 4 centermen, not counting Barzal. Yeah, it's really difficult not to see somebody like that. Even Komarov could step in and take draws.
Yeah.
Lee took a lot of draws. So
yeah,
it's interesting. Like I said, I want to see it just to have it work, and they pot 4 goals in a period, and you're like, all right, well, this is what we were doing, eh? Like, geez.
This is what we were waiting for.
Yeah, something like that, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Multiple comments about the scoring and the power play as huge issues for this team and could derail their bid for the cup. And, those are definite comments that I totally understand. I could totally get behind why you guys feel that way. Look, the power play, it's been this way for a long time. I don't know if it's personnel at this point, and it's not, maybe the coaching, but it just seems like nobody's moving their feet. Now, you do hope that Palmieri changes that a little bit, right? Because he's kind of a power play specialist. He's scored a bunch on the power play with the Devils. So, only 7 games in, small sample size, maybe things will turn around.
Did you see their power play goal tonight?
Yes.
What was the difference? It's so simple.
A ton of movement.
They snapped the puck around.
A ton of movement.
That's it.
And they were passing, right? Snap.
And they
That's
don't
the important
do it.
part. Is the confidence. I think it's a confidence thing too with this team.
Yeah, but that's years of like just.
Oh no, of course.
Simply not doing it. And it's weird that they find the creativity 5-on-5. They're a strong 5-on-5 team. They're a top 5-on-5 team.
Right.
Easy for us to say. So I think they need to have that confidence on the power play that they can do that. But it's a lot when you're throwing your 4 top offensive players on a line or whatever, and Martin, whatever you have your power play that night. They just need to move the puck around. You watch other good teams and other good power plays. They're not taking their time in this curling. And this is somebody I was brought up on that kind of like Russian, curls and all this other stuff. Like, I'm even tired of it. Like you play north-south. So on the power play, Barzal's got to get the puck in. They got to move the puck around. But even Bailey gets the puck on the wall. He's doing these little curls, and
they need to make sharp, crisp, confident passes. They need to move their feet, and all will be well. There's off too
high
often.
To low, high slot bumper.
Yes.
Like it's those little things. Like I don't think it's complicated. A lot of the league uses the same formula. It's because it's hard to defend. You can know it's coming. The Ovechkin thing. Unless you're going to lay somebody down in front of Ovechkin's stick all night, he's going to score. He's almost bound to.
Absolutely. I know.
So, they just need to snap it around a little bit.
Yeah. Hopefully they can have, Palmieri figure it out in that spot. Maybe Wahlstrom could reprise his role in that spot and find his touch again. He really did make a difference. He's definitely, most likely feeling it a little bit right now. The grind might be getting to him a little bit. So maybe this night off was necessary. He can come back and hopefully pot a few more. Jarrett says, I'm feeling less confident that they'll make it out of the first round. Now, I think it's a little too early for that, Jarrett. I think, tough week, but, keep in mind everything involved here. A few games after the trade deadline, you got 2 new players in the lineup nightly. The rookies needed a rest. Dobson gets his. Bailey gets a rest himself. Getting a little bit healthier again. Clutterbuck is the only one that's really missing out of the lineup. Michael Dal Cole has been pretty consistently healthy now. Bailey's, like I said before, is back in again. So I think there was a few factors that were contributing to the lack of good play last week. But it's only been 1 week of bad play. They rebounded tonight against the Rangers. I would have maybe been a little more hesitant to disagree with you right now that they won't make it out of the first round if they had lost to the Rangers tonight. But the elite team and the top team that the Islanders showed up against the Rangers, who are surging. There's nobody hotter in the East Division right now than the Rangers. Put them to sleep, moved on, scored 6 goals, and they hopefully can ride that wave, like I said, into Washington next week. I think that if they only come out of that, if they only come out of next week with 1 or 2 points, then we have something maybe there that we can agree on, that maybe it's possible they don't make it out of the first round. But as of right now, I think it's too early for that. I think they're poised for a Stanley Cup run.
It's hard to speculate about how far they'll go, and it could be you run into a hot goalie. Rask can easily steal 2 rounds. The Capitals tandem has been good. Who's the Washington goalie with the V last name? I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Vanacek.
Yeah, Vanacek. He's been good in stretches. The playoffs are just a completely different animal. So if the Islanders lose in the first round this year and the series was like, they dominated and ran into a good goalie, like that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And they can lose the series 4-2. You look back at the Penguins series years ago, like that series is way closer than 4-2.
Yeah.
So you look at that, or even last year, if you're the Philadelphia Flyers and you look at the Islanders series, you go, we lost in 7 games, but like talking about mostly overtime games. And you can look at the Tampa Bay series as the Islanders and say something similar.
Right.
We won in overtime. We lost in overtime. It was tight game. It's little things here and there. It's a lot of puck luck and all that kind of that bullshit. But yeah, if this continues, I agree with you. But they shook it off. Now is, again, 10 games remaining, a nice round number. I just want to see the consistency. Lose the games, go 7-3. But with those 3 games, better look damn good.
Be in it.
Better look super good.
Right.
Win games, work your way through and win games you shouldn't, i.e. read rather the Flyers game. Good teams make that happen. You play like shit, you still win.
Yep.
The thing is, when you lose, you still got to look like you should have won.
Correct.
The Leafs against Vancouver the other night. Clearly the better team.
Oh my God, Holtby, that was such a win.
With the Hasek pinwheel save.
That was amazing.
Bring me back to my road hockey days. That happens sometimes. And it happens over 5 or 6 games. Not odd. Islanders have gone on stretches like that where they let in like 4 goals in 8 games or whatever, some crazy number, like there were 6 goals in 7 games. That can happen in a playoff series. It's not that nuts. So I wouldn't worry about them making it out of the first round. Maybe the last handful of games, you start seeing, okay, here are the trends. They're going in the right direction. You want to see them build momentum, but I don't know that I'm thinking about that yet. I think it's maybe it's because we do the podcast, so I'm only thinking 1 week at a time. It's just it's not worth looking that far ahead. It's kind of like the weather. Yeah, like you can look at a 10-day forecast all you want, but that's going to change.
It depends on the context, right? Because we're talking about, someone's asking us if they're going to make it out of the first round, and we're basing that on the bad week that they had. You got to look at the bigger picture here. They've had a fantastic season, have they not?
It's a fantastic season. You can't take that away from them, but even a small sample size, playoff series are small sample sizes.
True.
It can be 4 games.
True.
The Capitals.
Valid
series,
point.
The Capital series last year. That was a 5-game series against the Capitals.
Right. Valid point. But in terms of the quantity of play, more often than not, they've been on their game. So
they're so capable of not being the Islanders.
Agreed.
And it's worth going in with, cautious optimism into a playoff series with any one of these teams, especially one that Boston showed that, with Taylor Hall, they're a different team. Pittsburgh showed this season that they're still really good and they can have the Islanders number. Yeah. And it remains, the jury's a little still out against the Capitals and the Islanders this season. So it's a huge toss-up going into those first and second rounds. I think that's what everyone has to understand. It's going to be tougher than normal getting out and going back to the Eastern Conference Final this year for the Islanders.
Yeah, let's see what happens this week, Jared. But I wouldn't be so quick to hit that panic button yet. Still plenty of time for them to figure out their scoring woes and everything. Listen, I don't know about the power play, but plenty of time for them to figure out the rest. And I think that might have started tonight against the Rangers. We will see. At the _NJM says to us, is this the last we'll see Cizikas as an Islander, given the amount of money that's going to be due to Pelech, Sorokin, and Anthony Beauvillier? And that's the question that everybody's been talking to each other in Islanders universe virtually since last season when Matt Barzal finally put pen to paper, right? We knew who the team was going to be this year, and the immediate question started, what happens next year? We have 4 key components who are going to either restricted or unrestricted free agency. Now, I'll start by saying this. I do think Cizikas will be back with the Islanders next season. I don't think Matt Martin gets 4 years without a contingency plan to also keep Casey Cizikas around as well.
Said that. We said this exact thing last week.
Yeah. I'll continue to say it. I'll speak it into existence. Pellick is going to get his money. He's staying. He's not going anywhere. Sorokin, we know, is not going anywhere. And the question continues. Too. Yeah, he's an RFA too, but so is Anthony Beauvillier, and he's the consistent question mark. I don't think he goes anywhere either, though. I think they all somehow come back. Now
they're gonna take a haircut on the COVID problem, and they're gonna take Islander discount, like homegrown discounts.
I think there will definitely be some homegrown discounts. A lot hinges on what happens with the Seattle expansion, but I don't know. I have this inkling of a feeling that this is the off season where Lou can figure out how to get rid of that Lod contract. I think he figures it out this season, and I think
there's other things that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I think the reason that is because you saw some creativity this trade deadline with multiple teams being part of a deal. So maybe he gets traded to one team for part of a salary, and then that team flips it to another team for another part of that salary. So it's very possible that Lou figures it out this season. And let's just say Seattle ends up taking, for argument's sake, I don't think this is going to happen, but a Josh Bailey flips Andrew Ladd. Now suddenly you have $10.5 million to work with. I think it happens.
And you got to remember, there's, I believe Dal Cole comes off the books. I believe Josh Hosang was on a 1-year deal. Yeah. Was Dal Cole not also on? Now we're talking about $700,000 a pop here,
right? But the little numbers add up.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that come off the books. Now they just signed that free agent out of, I want to say, North Dakota, that college player.
Adams. Yeah.
So that's probably a league min and all that kind of stuff, and probably a 2-way, and I think definitely a 2-way. So AHL salary is a lot less. So I think it can add up to work out. I think then the question is can Palmieri stay?
Right.
And that's going to be, could he take a little bit of a COVID discount to stay on a team in the same area with an organization that values him and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I want to say yes. I think probably in the same vein, willing it into existence that you had said. It probably has more to do with what kind of noise can the Islanders make, and does Palmieri believe it can be replicated another season? Because if he does, then you got to think Peugeot got here. They lost a bunch before he even played, and then they lost a bunch of games. He signed an extension, so I'd be willing to bet that Kyle is liking what he sees so far. He's probably not super satisfied with what he's doing, and knows that he's playing for a little bit of a contract. Even with how the Islanders playing, it's a little bit different. But tonight showed he can get the chances. He's just got to bury it. So that becomes more of my question outside of that. And I, going back to the original question with Cizikas, I think he wants to stay. I don't think he's going there. It doesn't. Lou wants to keep the core together and then add one piece, one little thing every year. Last year was Peugeot. This year is Sorokin. Then some internal candidates, and then it was Palmieri, and it was Zajac. Right. I think every little he wants to add a little bit if he can, and he's savvy enough. He'll make the money work one way or another. I don't want to say I'm not worried about it, but he's given Islander fans no reason to believe that he won't make it work.
Right. Yeah. So I sincerely think all four of our players that are going to free agency, restricted or not, this offseason they will return. And the question really is, like John said, is Kyle Palmieri going to remain on Long Island?
And I'll say this. Sorry, I know you heard me do I was going to say something. I think what's important to remember here too is, so we go into last season, the off season, we know money's going to be tight. Unexpected, Devontae gets traded. hold on to your butts, Islanders fans, because between the expansion draft and you never know. I think that's where something's got to happen, right? It's either you got to move Ladd or you got to move something a lot like that contract.
Right.
For argument's sake, that's where Bailey comes into play here. But that's that amount of money that you kind of need to free up and be able to move around to really make a difference here. So just to think, and also think about it like this. Beauvillier already makes a contract, so you're talking about maybe $1 million or $2 million in addition to what he already makes. Cizikas is probably going to get a little bit of a cut from what he's making because he was making a good amount of money. So a lot of this money is existing in the cap, and then you're only finding $5 or $6 million. Not to give to one, even if one guy gets it, it's only a $3 million raise or whatever. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that needs to happen too. But I don't know what that might be. I don't think the most surprising thing would be Bailey being moved, which might mean that it's something else. So I think it's just like, be open to the idea. I don't think anybody ended last season and the run that the Islanders had and said, you know who's going to get traded? Taves. That makes sense.
That's true.
Absolutely not. So expect the unexpected.
Although I did put him in a mock scenario where we flipped him to Detroit for Anthony Mantha, who's scored 4 goals for Washington right now, but I'm going to let that go.
I mean, that's a hockey trade. That's not a cap savvy move, right? He did it, and it's tough to see Taves have some success in Colorado. I mean, you want to see him succeed,
it's a different team. It's a different team.
At this, and anyone that's comparing Mayfield and Taves' numbers this season, don't do that.
Stop.
That's not the same thing. That's like saying this banana is not as good as this hamburger. Well, that is not. And some people do put bananas on hamburgers. I think it's a thing. Whatever. But that's not my point. We have a food argument. Different time. We've already seen that happen. Although it was dressing, whatever. Stop doing that. You look ridiculous because they are just not the same player.
No.
At all. That is not. Now, what happened, and you want to compare numbers even a little bit, is Leddy and Taves, because they were partners last year, and Leddy seems to have picked up the slack for the defense.
And some.
So, even though I don't love that comparison, I think it's much better.
Correct.
So, stop comparing Mayfield, who some players have down years. They're still top 4 in the league in goals against, still fairly consistently good. He's a good player on this team. He's a top 4 defender in the league.
And he only makes $1 million a year.
Yeah, and he only makes $1 million. So we're gonna love Scott Mayfield on this podcast. Is what we're gonna do.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. Well, I just think he's a good player. He's not a standout guy. And yeah, has that pair had a rough season? Sure. That's fair. Don't go overboard and then start being like, why did we give up Taves? It's because he doesn't make $1 million. I'm sorry.
Right.
You can't that's something you can just have revisionist history about and change all this crap. That it just doesn't work like that.
Right. So at some point in Colorado, I think in his second or third year with them, he'll be making close to $6 million a year.
And not to say he's not worth it.
Right.
But the way that the Islanders it's currently constructed, are we going to wish we had Taves when maybe Leddy's 32 or 33 at the end of his contract? Yeah, that'd be great. But you had to make a move for now. And the Islanders are, 2 wins away this upcoming week from having sole possession of first place, unless the Penguins go on an absolute tear, which is entirely possible.
Yep.
They turned out okay. They finally got the offense you wanted. You can't go back and be like, but Devin Taves. No. You can't stop it.
And you can't even look at his offensive numbers and even the advanced stats and be like, oh, but look at how well he's doing in Colorado. It's Colorado,
He's playing with like McCarr.
They
right?
score at will. Let's call a spade a spade. They score at will. He's paired with McCarr and playing on the first unit with Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Gabriel Landeskog. Plus, that's a power play unit. Just give me a break. All right. It's different. It's different. If he was playing with the Islanders right now, his numbers would not be as inflated as they are. Great for him. That's more his style. That's more his structure and probably the style of play for him and the system for him to be playing in. But that's not how it would have been with the Islanders. Not to say he wouldn't obviously make our defense better, because he would, but it just wasn't in the stars.
Yeah, it's just stop the comparison. We have what we have. This is it. Buy in now. Get on the bandwagon. Let's go Islanders.
How about this moment to make us feel old, John, to end the show? Because you and I were up there, man.
Yeah, I hate this a little bit.
Go ahead, take it away.
Oh, the Spencer Knight, who I believe just won a gold medal in the World Juniors, if I'm not mistaken. One of the two Florida Panthers upcoming goalies. The first goaltender born in the 2000s to appear in an NHL game turned aside 33 or 34 shots earlier tonight on Tuesday to earn a win in his league debut. I hate that. I mean, good for him. That's great.
Yeah,
but
good for him.
It was hard when it was like guy born in 1997, or like, that's a bunch of guys where like, when you hear this Marlowe stat, like when he started in the league in 97, and some guys were Austin Matthews was like 2 weeks old or whatever, whatever these things are. This one hurts even a little more than that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. It's weird how the league changes, and when you look back 10 years ago and guys are born in the 70s still, early 80s, and then that's slowly fading away. And then you're the same age as some of the guys. And then you hear on Puck Soup, you hear Ryan Lambert go, "Oh, the guy's 31. He's toast." And I'm like, "But I'm 30." And you're like, I'm old. It's like, I understand it's old for hockey to a certain extent. I still don't think it's that old, but you hear that kind of stuff, and it's tough to swallow sometimes, as I like struggle to get up and down the ice in beer league. But then you hear this and you're like, oh my God, this is very different.
Yeah, totally wild.
It is not my favorite stat, but it is a good one.
It's a great stat. Makes me feel bad.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't want to be, I promise I'm not going to be the person that's like, I remember when it was like, I don't want to do that. Like, congratulations to the kid. New wave of hockey. I'm excited to where the game's going to go, what players like that can bring to the table, the creativity and the Svechnikov stuff, and all, a generation of players brought up on YouTube, and Pavel Barber is going to be great. So I'm not going to be one of these guys and be like, oh, these young players and whippersnappers don't know how it was in the 90s and the burp. I don't care. It was the 90s. It was great while it lasted. It is not that anymore. We want to score more goals and do all that stuff, and more high skilled. So it's fine. We'll all live.
We will. That about wraps it up for this week, John. I regret to inform all of you that this is my last podcast as a single man.
You said that way too slow. Can we talk about that? I was like,
don't worry,
this was a huge surprise. If you're watching this on YouTube and you see my eyes light up like a goddamn Christmas tree,
don't worry.
I thought he was leaving the show.
Never.
Jesus,
don't do that. You're as married to me as Stephanie will be on Friday.
I'm sure Stephanie super wants to hear that.
But next time you hear this, I will be a married man. Send your well wishes, and please don't be like the rest of those people who said to me, why are you getting married? Because I am. Because I want to.
You guys are ridiculously stupid, disgusting in love, and I hate it. I hate following both of you on Instagram. God damn it.
Hey man, it is what it is. But okay.
Love is dumb.
Thank you to everyone who is listening right now, our listeners. Thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network and the Hockey Writers. Let's All take a moment to please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Nassaumen Hockey, and you can find our work at The Hockey Writers. And until next time, everybody, let's go Islanders.